Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, certainly within this safe space of the Men's Forum. So, for those who don't know me, I'm a Met officer, although you couldn't tell by my accent. But I joined the National Board in 2018, and I was the Wellbeing Lead. That it was newly set up back then. So I've done the main focus of my work is around wellbeing and what it means for policing. And that's for everyone, no matter what. So just following on from the three guest speakers that we've already had, I'm in awe of the honesty and the openness of which they spoke about their journeys, etc. And I'm no way am I on here as an expert. Obviously, I'm a woman. So we are different, believe it or not. I mean, I think some police forces would argue with that, but we are different. We have got different needs. So throughout my wellbeing journey, I've focused a lot on certainly women's health as well as the women's lead that I was. But I've always had the men's agenda in the background for me as an individual, shall we say. And certainly now that the space, and I know Stuart touched on it, the space that we find ourselves in now as an organisation, as in forces, with regards to the violence against women agenda and the misogyny, etc., that I've spoken a lot about as well. I do feel we cannot go through this journey on our own as females, and men have got a part to play. Hence why we were really keen to talk about culture and attitudes today, and what part women have got to play in regards to this space. Language and culture has got a massive part, and I do think to a certain extent we've become very complacent in that space. As you see behind me, although it's backwards on my screen, but I think you can see behind me, there's some quotes, or there's some language that's been used, and actually I'm guilty of it myself. I have said man up, and I'm quite ashamed of that, actually, back in when I was on team in the Met, and I've said it to men and I've said it to women, because it's almost it's too difficult to deal with. So when you've got a colleague that you know has gone to a particularly awful traumatic call, and then you see them, well, back then when we had police stations and we could sit and have our sort of refs together, but they would try and talk about actually what, and you'd be like, oh, come on, we haven't got time for this. We need to just crack on, get our refs, get our little, have whatever it is to eat, and we've got to get back out there. And I think that's had an impact over time, and to the point now where we're we're in the space now that we find ourselves in, that there's just no time to talk about it. I do think the younger generation, certainly younger men coming through, I've got a different approach to around mental health and physical health, but I think that as well, that comes with its own dangers on top of that. So where we've had the lovely Nick talk about addiction, help for addiction doesn't just focus on drink, drugs, gambling. It's almost is porn as well. And I think we've got to be alive to the fact of that younger in service officers have got more access to that porn world than what certainly that I ever had. It was always like the top shelf, and you always almost felt a little bit naughty looking up whenever you went into a newsagent's or whatever it was. So it's the accessibility, but I think we've all got a part to play with regards to where we find ourselves now. The one thing that's really got to me over the years is or trying to understand is, why do men not talk? It just blows my mind that that we work with people, men, that don't want to open up or don't want to talk about their feelings. Even just this week, we've touched on it. We had our National Council meeting, and we done some really good testing around PSA, etc. And there was conversations that we were having with a lot of the men that were coming through, but even the men that weren't, I would approach, and it'd be like, oh no, I don't want to know. Oh no, yeah, big burly police officer. Well, I don't need to know about that. I don't need to have these tests. And it's just bizarre to me, because women have just got a different approach. Now, whether it's probably is psychological, it's probably, John will probably agree that there's some scientific, biological thing around that. But I think we've all, again, as women, we've got a part to play in order to encourage and give men that safe space to be able to say, even clumsily, because men, I think we're in a space again where they're like, oh, can I say that? And the amount of, men I'm talking to, and they go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that comment, or maybe I should. But it's about understanding where they're coming from, and knowing that they're not, they're not meaning any sort of hurt by it. It's just that they're clumsy in the way that they want to express their feelings. So it's about what part to play and what we need to do, again, within this space, and changing what part we've got to play, and responsibility in that change in attitudes. I'm really lucky now, and certainly on this men's forum, I'm surrounded by men that want to talk, that are happy to talk, and they're comfortable to talk. And it's really, really humbling to hear, that coming forward. We don't want mental health to be a taboo anymore. It can't be a taboo anymore. It's got to be, you've got to be open. We want to encourage that open and that honesty. But again, it's because we're police officers, it's sometimes a really difficult space to still be in. And I know Stuart touched on the misconduct side of it, and that is still there, because when we were talking about the addiction side of it, and this has been quite a journey, really. I mean, we've been in contact with Nick for well over a year. But even when I've been to some MPCC meetings and I've touched on addiction, I have seen some chief officers that are in the room, they're like, oh, I don't really want to be talking about that. And it's disappointing. And I'm really proud that we're looking at this space going forward, because when John was touching on the diseases that certainly men are presenting with, a lot of that, and quite high up, I noticed was drug and alcohol. But when you look at some of the diseases that could have been contributed to stress, anxiety, or bad habits, self-medicating with the wrong food or with the wrong drink, shift work, 2 o'clock in the morning, very difficult to get something very healthy to eat. So you maybe go for a kebab, or you go for a McDonald's, or whatever it is. So all of that, I feel, contributes. So we've got to start looking at, what's the best thing for us, men and women, but men in this space going forward, but talking about their health. Man flu, I hear that. Like, I actually heard it this week, and I told someone off, and I said, we've got to stop saying that. Man flu can kill men, because it's almost I feel like we're watering down actually an illness that they may be facing, even if it is a cold or if it is influenza. It's still horrible, but it's almost like, oh, the language that they're using, man flu or man up, it's almost like, well, you're a man, you shouldn't be feeling like that. And it's completely and utterly wrong. It's the wrong lens for us to be looking at. It's the wrong language that we're using, and we've absolutely need to start focusing a bit more on our own responsibilities and the language that we're using. As a woman, I'm a mother of a son. He's going to be 31 this year. I was a single mother for 16 years. His dad's never really been in his life at all. So it was a real journey for me as a woman, bringing up this young man. And he is a proud gay man. And I remember when he was younger, and he was struggling with his sexuality. I remember when he did come out, the amount of people said to me, "Oh, it's because you brought him up on your own as a woman." And it was like, whoa. He had my dad as a role model. He had my brother as a role model. It was still kind of difficult, but it was a real, I found it quite an eye-opener, really. But then looking back as well, we and looking at women as mothers, we're there to nurture, and I do think we do treat boys and girls differently, and I do think there's a lot of work that we can be doing, certainly around that parenting side of it. But we're fast forward now, we're in policing, and it's for us to recognise, and Nick touched on it as well, and we've heard this quite a bit, that there's neurodiverse conditions that we haven't been diagnosed with over the years, that now it's becoming more acceptable to go and get a diagnosis. Certainly we've seen it with some officers that are under misconduct, and then we ultimately see some of the reps say, well, actually they've been diagnosed with ADHD or autism, they're on the spectrum, and actually that tells you that's the behavior, that's why they acted the way they acted. So it's about getting all that, but it's about us being open. It's about men being more open and encouraging that, and having that safe space to speak, with regards to what's affecting women is also affecting them. And if they are feeling different, or feel they have got a neurodiverse issue, or condition, for them to actually go and not feel like, a wuss, for want of a better words, because that's how they've been made to feel, for going to find out exactly what, why they're feeling the way they're feeling. So I just really wanted to come on to give a female perspective. I do feel like, the men only groups, I think you have to have a safe space to speak, same as women, with some of the things and topics that we talk about. But don't discard us, as in not being that, that support, or that, we're really championing, because we are, most women are. We're in this situation together. I feel together. I've had terrible experiences within policing. I've been, I've had some terrible managers, both male and female. So there's no issue. It's not just men, it's not just women. But I do feel now is the time for us to come together, recognise the issues that men do face. There is a real thing called the andropause. Women get menopause, men get the andropause, and it's a real dip in testosterone. And we've done a little bit of work, myself and Zach and the men's forum, around that. But I think for me, the main crux for me is about language, attitudes, and getting men to talk. If you're concerned about anything, you're worried about anything, go and speak to somebody. That's the one biggest play that I will give you. Suicide in men is way above women, and there is a reason for that, and it is about talking and sharing, and actually coming and feeling that confidence to say to someone, actually I'm struggling. Really interestingly, when we done the PSA testing last year in Newcastle, we did have a couple of high readings, and we sent a kind of plea out to say, look, follow up on it, because it's all anonymous, confidential. But actually a couple of them men reached out to me, didn't reach out to the other men. But there's a reason for that, and it's whatever you're comfortable with. There's no right or wrong, it's just about sharing that. And that's my main play again today, is just talk. Just know that we're all in it together. When my colleagues are being called terrible names when they're out there, certainly trying to police the streets, all around England and Wales, and people lumping us all in together, that hurts my heart. That hurts me the same as it hurts whether I was a male or female. So just know that we're here, and we've all got a part to play, and we've all got responsibility for our language. And it's just about looking at the attitudes, looking at that, and actually doing something about it, instead of just letting it pass. We've got upstanders for violence against women and girls. We should all be upstanders for everybody, looking out for everybody. And that was the main message, really, that I wanted to get through. And just be interesting to see if there are any questions for our guest speakers, Nick, Stuart and John, about why we think men do not talk. What is the science behind that? And actually, what they feel makes it easier for them to actually come forward and talk. So hopefully I haven't rattled on too much. It's only 15 minutes, but happy to take any questions with the rest of the panel.